שלנו היא זדרבקה קרסטבה, אם אני מבטא את זה נכון, is a lawyer, associate professor at the Faculty of Law of Sofia University, St. Clement Ochridsky. She is the author of the monograph Legal Aspects of the State Anti-Jewish Policy in the Kingdom of Bulgaria 1940 through 1944, and she will talk about legal aspects of the anti-Jewish policy in the Kingdom of Bulgaria 1941 through 1944. Please, the floor is yours.
My name correctly? Yeah, thank you. It's a very difficult name for foreigners. It's usually not pronounced correctly. As you see, the title of this presentation is not exactly the same what is written in the programs that you have, because the topic of Bulgarian policy during the Kingdom of Bulgaria, anti-Jewish policy, is a broad topic. And I decided to focus what I'm going to say to you and present to you to the legal aspects of the deportation of the Jews from Macedonia, Thrace, and the period in the light of the international law of war or international humanitarian law. It's important to admit at the beginning that I'm going to speak about well-known facts and well-known and well-established legal interpretation of these facts. It could be strange for external observer that discussion in Bulgaria, public discussion and also the academic discussion, is still does not agree on the legal qualification of the presence of Bulgarian forces in Thrace and Macedonia, on the state territory of Greece and Yugoslavia. And this is part of the distortion of the truth that we are seeing today. That is the reason why I, in 2011, start my research on the topic from the legal point of view. And that's why I think that, sorry. How do you change? Yes. That's why I think that the legal analysis is very much needed in Bulgaria, in the Bulgarian legal academia, because on the first point, the state's policy toward the Jews in Bulgaria has a distinct written legal form, so you can easily analyze it because it's well documented. Also, legal interpretation is relatively predictable and less burdened by political, ideological, or other expedients. There is inconsistency that I spoke already about in the qualifications of the Bulgarian presence in the territories of Greece and Yugoslavia during the Second War. And there is a big, stark contrast and discrepancy between the official positions of the modern Bulgarian state and the World Academic Centers for Study of the Holocaust. And let me show you this contrast. The position of today, this is a short retrospection of the position of today's Bulgarian state, starting 15 years ago, 2013, when we commemorated the 70th anniversary of the rescue of Bulgarian Jews, and we were supposed to show respect for the memory of the victims of the Holocaust. What you're seeing on the right is an excerpt from the Declaration of the National Assembly, that was the official position on this special occasion, where for the first time, the 11,343 Jews that were deported from Greece and Macedonia, from Thrace and Macedonia, were mentioned in the official state position, at least the first that I know of. And look at the phrase that the parliamentarians used. They said they cannot deny that these people were deported, but they're sorry about this fact because the territories were under German jurisdiction. 5 years later, for the first time, the then Prime Minister of Bulgaria, Mr. Boyko Borisov, oh, I didn't change it. I'm using 2 computers and because my notes are on my laptop. Our Prime Minister, for the first time, visit on the commemoration of 75th anniversary Macedonia, and this is official press release from the Cabinet of Prime Minister on his visit in Skopje on 12th of March 2008. And as you see, I haven't underlined it here, but it says, Bulgaria received from Nazi Germany the rights for administrative governance of the territory, but not the possibility to accept as its own citizens all the people living on this territory. Unfortunately, part of the text is not seen. Could I'll read it to you. The Jews of these lands were forbidden to obtain Bulgarian citizenship and remained under the jurisdiction of the Nazi authorities. That's what is written, and it's not seen on the screen at the moment, but it's part of the official position in 2018. These days, 2 months ago, on the 80th anniversary, the official state position could be found in this press release by the President of the Republic of Bulgaria. It's again not seen entirely. Oh, you can see it, I hope now. No mention of the Jews deported from Thrace and Macedonia. Just 5 years later than the previous commemoration in the position of the then Prime Minister Borisov. It says even that Bulgarian institutions rejected anti-Semitism as if there was no anti-Jewish legislation in Bulgaria, no persecution of Bulgarian Jews, and mentioning of the victims of the Holocaust is only as the big number of the millions, without specific mentioning of the Jews that were deported from Thrace and Macedonia. And more, look at the second paragraph. The President actually warned everybody that is trying to, who is trying to speak about the deported Jewry from Thrace and Macedonia, that this is an attempt to impute guilt. At the very least, a sign of disrespect for our rescued Jewish fellow citizens and for the moral fate of tiny Bulgaria. So we can say that for 15 years, the first positions were not based on truth, but there were some signs that the government is rethinking the position that was well established for decades. But now, in 2023, there is a regress to denial of everything that's happened. This position, official state position, is in a stark contrast with every world academic research institute, including, of course, Yad Vashem. This is just a small example, what you can read about Bulgaria during the war and its policy toward Jewry, and everything that you can read always mentions that in the early 1943, the government acceded to Germany's demands to deport the Jews of Thrace and Macedonia to the extermination camps in Poland, that prepared the first deportation of Bulgarian Jews, and according to different factors, they were rescued and the deportation was stopped. it's the same what we can read on the pages of United States Holocaust Memorial Museum or the European Holocaust Research Infrastructure. It basically states undisputable facts and legal qualifications of what happened in 1943. What are the questions that the legal analysis can answer? The first one is, what is the legal status of the so-called new Bulgarian lands or territories in Thrace and Macedonia during the Second World War? Under whose jurisdiction are the Jews of Thrace, Macedonia, and Pirot? Are the deportations of civilian populations legal during the Second World War? Because this was an issue raised in Bulgaria. Is the Kingdom of Bulgaria responsible for the deportation? And then today, Bulgaria could be responsible too. These are the well-known facts about participation of the Kingdom of Bulgaria in the World War. And I'm not going to read it to you because we don't have much time, but I'm sure that this knowledgeable audience are well aware and know how the Bulgaria participation started and what happened next. The question that I wanted to answer in my research is, how should we call these new Bulgarian lands or territories? Occupied, annexed, or just administered, as you can see usually the state institutions in Bulgaria are calling them. There are two relevant legal norms that we have to bear in mind. And one note here I'd like to make. For the researcher, for today's researcher, it's very dangerous that he can or she can analyze the past during today's lens that he is looking at through. And that's why the entire research that I have written is based on the international and national Bulgarian law as it was during the war, without any mentioning of the future developments, conventions, human rights conventions, etc. So if we look at the how can I go back, because I missed a slide. I don't see some. Okay, thanks. Yeah. So the legal framework of this time, and actually this time, today time too, was the Hague Regulations from 1907, and these two particular articles of the Hague Regulations, which says that the territory is considered occupied under specific conditions. And what is common in these two articles is that the important fact, who is the occupator of a territory, is who is holding the factual, actual power and authority over the territory and its citizens. What happened? Somebody... Sorry. Did I do that? This is a well-established legal definition of the military occupation from Eero Benvenisti, a well-known author, legal author, and academic in the field, which again says and puts the focus on the effective factual control over the territory. So we can, having that in mind, we can check the documents that we have from the time to see who or which state has that actual factual authority over the Thrace and Macedonia and Pirot and the citizens living there, the people living there. Well, one well-known document is the Claudius Popov Agreement, which is an economic agreement between Germany, Nazi Germany, and the Kingdom of Bulgaria. In this document, Bulgarian state is, as an occupier, according to me and according to the legal scientists, is giving up some rights of the occupier to Nazi Germany. There are some words that we can find in this agreement. It's written in Bulgarian, and it's my translation here, but they speak about parts of former Yugoslav states seized by Bulgaria, captured by Bulgaria, taken over by Bulgarian troops, occupied even by Bulgaria, former Yugoslavian areas. The same agreement was signed about the Greek territories with similar content. Even more important document, act, the Paris Treaty of Peace with Bulgaria from 1947. It explicitly mentions the occupation by Bulgaria of territory of those states, Greece and Yugoslavia. You may wonder if it's so clear why somebody arguing from today's date what was the role in Bulgaria in this territories, foreign territories. And I can tell you some of the objections raised in Bulgarian public discussion and also even in academic discussion. Some authors in Bulgaria argue that Bulgaria did not occupy the new lands due to the rule of the so-called first occupation principle. And based on that signed capitulations of Greece and Yugoslavia, the occupation regime was established by Germany, and therefore Germany was the temporary sovereign responsible for the population according to the international law. But if you check all the legal books on international law, you will never find such rule, the first occupation principle. During war, the authority, the power over some territories could change many times. And it's always important who has the effective, actual authority over the land and its inhabitants. Objection 2, raised in Bulgarian discussion. Bulgarian presence in the new territories cannot be defined as military occupation because Bulgaria has not participated in their forcible invasion and they are not inhabited by a foreign population. Or otherwise, it's inhabited with Bulgarian population. This is actually funny even to argue with, because who uses the military strength is irrelevant. Sometimes occupation could be established without using force, just with threat of force. Sometimes even peace treaty could establish military occupation. So this argument is easy to be disqualified. The second argument that the population was not foreign, firstly, the citizens there were Yugoslavian and Greek citizens, majority of them, but the responsibility that the occupying state has towards citizens does not depend on their citizenship. all the people who are under the authority of the military occupant protected by the international humanitarian law. So this argument, this objection could easily also be opposed. Objection 3, another one from the Bulgarian discussion. It has been repeatedly pointed out by various authors, also lawyers or historians, that the power exercised by the Kingdom of Bulgaria over the new territories has a temporary, limited nature of administrative governance because the final determination of the political status of the new lands should be made after the end of the war. I cannot agree more with this statement. It is not an objection to the notion that Bulgaria has exercised military occupation, but it's a confirmation of the same, because military occupation is always limited, has always limited nature, is always temporary, and you cannot argue with this. You cannot use it also to justify the acts of the military occupant. And when all the arguments against the legal qualifications of the so-called new territories are exhausted, then comes the final one. The Bulgarian state could not stop the deportation of the Jews from the new lands because they were not Bulgarian citizens. Let me say again that the person living under military occupation has rights and has to be protected on different bases, not which citizens are they, but because they are under the international law of war and international humanitarian law which protects them. When we argue in Bulgaria under which jurisdictions were the Jews from Thrace, Macedonia, and Pirot, the undisputable arguments that could be underlined here is that there was no question that the Kingdom of Bulgaria was the occupation power in the new lands under the Hague Regulation. More, all Bulgarian anti-Jewish laws were applied on these so-called new territories. The Jewish property was confiscated in favor of Bulgarian state, not Nazi Germany. Jews were subject to monthly registration in the local Bulgarian police department, not other state departments. Bulgaria signed a treaty with Nazi Germany on the deportation of the Jewish population, and Bulgarian government adopted 7 decrees regulating the deportation. The Bulgarian administration, let me read it because it's probably some problem with the formatting. I'll read it from here. The Bulgarian administration implemented organizationally, logistically, all deportation actions until the Jews were handed over in German hands. This is without question the truth, well documented and difficult to be objected. Another question, I don't have time, but let me go quickly through this. You might wonder, who is this today person who will question the illegality of the civilian deportation of civilian population? But it happened in Bulgaria. Even members of parliament have raised that question. And they say that the deportation of civilian population committed during the Second World War was legal because there was no explicit provision prohibiting deportations of the civilian population. And the truth is that in the Hague Regulations of 1907, explicit provisions was not included because, according to the contracting states, deportations were below the minimum standard of civilization and therefore do not require deliberate prohibition. Deportation of civilians is criminalized in the Nuremberg Charter, and there's no single case in Nuremberg tribunals or courts in France, China, Israel, and Netherlands, Poland, and all the other that were performed after the war that treats the mass deportations, that doesn't treat the mass deportation as crimes. So, I'll skip some slides because I don't have time, but I want to speak with you about something. The question of legal responsibility of Bulgarian authorities for the deportation. It is argued, and as you saw already, it's part of the official state position, that Nazi Germany is solely responsible for the deportation of the Jewish population from Macedonia, Thrace, and Pirot, because Bulgaria has only temporarily rights to only temporarily administrate these territories, and the Bulgarian authorities do not have the opportunity, the ground, and the sovereign power to refuse the deportation of population. There are two possible exclusions to the state responsibility that could be potentially applied if Bulgaria is not responsible. One is if Bulgaria is a puppet state, which is not capable of functioning without the sanction of Germany in every decision that is made. And this could be easily opposed because the Bulgarian state during the war is recognized by international community as a sovereign state. The authorities are created without any external intervention. The state authorities take their own decisions. The state territory is not occupied by Germany, and at the will of its own state bodies, Bulgaria has signed an official international treaty by virtue of which it gave to Germany the Jews from Thrace and Macedonia. The other possibility that could possibly and potentially exclude the international responsibility of the Bulgarian state is if the deportation is a result of direct coercion on the Bulgarian authorities, or otherwise, if Germany is using force, military force, or threat of military force to make the Bulgarian authorities perform the deportation. This is not true. The two states were partners in the tripartite pact. It is true that Germany, Nazi Germany, was very influential as a stronger party of this coalition, but it always was performed through diplomacy and negotiation between two sovereign allied states. There is no evidence of direct German orders to deport population from the territories controlled by Bulgaria. This was negotiated with the Bulgarian authorities. I will skip the last objection because it's on the field of virtual historiography. What could have happened if Bulgaria have refused to deport the Jewry from Thrace and Macedonia? It is not academic to analyze such hypothetical questions, but even in these questions we have to rely on facts. And one of the facts is that no other ally of Nazi Germany was sanctioned based solely on this ground that it refused to give the Jews from the territory. But let me remind you in the end again the position of today's Bulgarian state. But I haven't put the new one, so I won't remind you. When we are speaking about such a sensitive topics, it is my deepest conviction that we have to carefully base our arguments only on facts. And the facts, as you see it on the slide, are that during Second World War, the Kingdom of Bulgaria exercised military occupation over Macedonia, Thrace, and today southeastern Serbia, and therefore has the corresponding obligation to protect the civilians in the occupied territories. Second, the initiative of the deportation was not Bulgarian, it was German. But the pressure does not involve direct coercion, force or threat of force towards Bulgaria, but it's carried through negotiation and diplomacy between the two partners. And third, the Bulgarian authorities carry out the deportation of the Jewish population of Macedonia, Thrace, and Pirot in all its legal, organizational, and logistic aspects until the Jews were handed over in the Nazi hands. According to me, it's shameful to deny these basic facts and legal interpretation of the facts, but let me finish with a sentence from the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, on the occasion of 80th anniversary of the rescue of the Bulgarian Jews several months ago. She says, today people know how even in Europe's darkest hours there was light glimmering in Bulgaria. It is true, but it is also true that there was darkness in Bulgaria during these times, and the noble thing is to speak and talk and write again and again about not only the light, but the darkness that happened. That's what I tried to do in the paper that I wrote and during my presentation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll proceed immediately.